When we think of space, what comes to mind for most of us is the opportunity to visit nearby and faraway planets. A significant percentage of us even go further to imagine starting life on another planet. But with all the rigors of daily life, I know most of us don't care enough to learn the statistical chances of humanity ever escaping to another habitable planet, even as we accelerate towards the destruction of ours. So, let's talk about something more interesting. What would dying on every planet within our solar system look like? Spoiler alert. Space is not exactly a five-star resort. It's more like a cosmic death trap, where every planet has its own unique way of saying, "You're not welcome here." Mercury, the mood swing planet. Say you're part of a space exploration team sent to Mercury. Due to its slow rotational speed, a day on Mercury lasts almost half a year in Earth days, or 2 years in Mercury days. But that's not the problem. During the day, temperatures on Mercury reach extremes of 800 degrees Fahrenheit or 467 degrees Celsius. This is hotter than any spacesuit we have now can handle. And if you think that landing at nighttime is better, temperatures on the dark side drop to negative 290 degrees Fahrenheit. You'd freeze solid in seconds, turning into a human popsicle. But what if you're somehow insulated against these temperature extremes? Just like every other planet in our solar system, besides Earth of course, Mercury's air is not breathable. And just like that, the first planet hits a trifecta. You either burn to a crisp, freeze to death, or suffocate as soon as your oxygen tanks run out. Now, let's move on to Venus, Earth's so-called sister planet. But don't let the nickname fool you. Venus is more like the evil twin who's out to get you. If Mercury is the planet that can't decide whether it wants to roast you or freeze you, Venus has no such indecision. It's here to kill you, and it's not subtle about it. First, let's talk about the heat. Venus is the hottest planet in the solar system, with surface temperatures averaging around 900 degrees Fahrenheit, 475 degrees Celsius. That's hot enough to melt lead and definitely hot enough to turn you into charred barbecue in seconds. But wait, it gets worse. The atmospheric pressure on Venus is a crushing 92 times that of Earth's. Imagine being at the bottom of the ocean, but instead of water, you're being squeezed by a thick, toxic atmosphere. Your body would be flattened like a pancake while your organs boiled inside you. And speaking of toxic, Venus's atmosphere is mostly carbon dioxide with clouds of sulfuric acid. So while you're being crushed and cooked, you'd also be choking on fumes that smell like rotten eggs. It's like being trapped in a pressure cooker that's also a chemical factory. In short, dying on Venus would be a triple threat. You'd be roasted, crushed, and poisoned all at the same time. It's the planet that says, "Welcome to hell. Enjoy your stay, or don't, you're gonna die either way." Earth, the comfortable but still deadly. Option: our home, sweet home. You might think dying on Earth is boring compared to the other planets, but don't be so sure. Earth has plenty of ways to kill you, and most of them are pretty creative. But here's the thing. Earth is still the only habitable planet in the solar system. Sure, it has its dangers, but at least you have a fighting chance. On Earth, you might die in a freak accident, but on other planets, death is pretty much guaranteed. So, enjoy your time here while you can. It's the only planet where you might actually survive. For a while, at least. Mars, the red planet of dehydration. Mars, the planet that's been teasing us with the possibility of life for centuries. But let's be real. If you were to die on Mars, it wouldn't be because of little green men. It would be because of the planet's harsh, unforgiving environment. First off, the atmosphere on Mars is 95% carbon dioxide, so you'd suffocate pretty quickly if you weren't wearing a spacesuit. But let's say you are wearing a spacesuit. What then? Well, the average temperature on Mars is around negative 80 degrees Fahrenheit, so you'd freeze to death pretty quickly. And if that doesn't get you, the lack of water will. Mars is a desert planet, and dehydration would set in fast. But wait, there's more. Mars is also bombarded by cosmic radiation, thanks to its thin atmosphere and lack of a magnetic field. So even if you managed to survive the cold and the lack of oxygen, you'd still be slowly cooked by radiation. In short, dying on Mars would be a slow, cold, and thirsty affair. Not exactly the glamorous space adventure Elon promised. Now we come to Jupiter, the king of the planets. Jupiter is a gas giant, which means it doesn't have a solid surface. If you were to die on Jupiter, you'd be in for a wild ride. As you descend into Jupiter's atmosphere, you'd be greeted by hurricane-force winds and crushing pressure. The deeper you go, the more intense it gets. Eventually, the pressure would become so great that your body would be crushed like a soda can. And just to make things worse, Jupiter's atmosphere is mostly hydrogen and helium, with a dash of ammonia and methane. So, you'd also be suffocating on toxic gases while being crushed to death. But here's the kicker. Jupiter's gravity is so strong that you'd be pulled in faster and faster as you fell. By the time you reach the planet's core, if you even made it that far, you'd be moving at thousands of miles per hour. Your body would be vaporized long before you hit the bottom, so dying on Jupiter would be like being thrown into a blender the size of a planet. Not exactly a peaceful way to go. Saturn, the ringed death trap. Saturn is famous for its beautiful rings, but don't let the scenery fool you. This planet is just as deadly as its big brother Jupiter. Like Jupiter, Saturn is a gas giant with no solid surface. If you were to die on Saturn, you'd be in for a similar fate: suffocation, crushing pressure, and a toxic atmosphere. But Saturn has one extra trick up its sleeve: its rings. If you were unlucky enough to fall into Saturn's rings, you'd be shredded by the countless chunks of ice and rock that make them up. Imagine being thrown into a giant cosmic garbage disposal. That's what dying on Saturn would be like. So while Saturn might look pretty from a distance, up close it's a death trap. And those beautiful rings? They're more like a cosmic cheese grater. Uranus, the ice giant that will freeze. Solid Uranus is the solar system's underappreciated ice giant. It's cold, it's windy, and it's not exactly a tourist hotspot. If you were to die on Uranus, you'd be in for a chilly demise. The average temperature on Uranus is around negative 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is cold enough to freeze just about anything. If you weren't wearing a spacesuit, you'd freeze solid in seconds. But even if you were wearing a spacesuit, you'd still have to deal with the planet's intense winds, which can reach speeds of up to 560 miles per hour. And let's not forget about the atmosphere. Uranus is mostly hydrogen and helium, with a dash of methane. So you'd be suffocating on toxic gases while being blown around by hurricane-force winds. In short, dying on Uranus would be a cold, windy, and suffocating affair. Not exactly the way you'd want to go. Last but not least, we have Neptune, the solar system's other ice giant. Neptune is similar to Uranus in many ways, but it's even colder and windier. If you were to die on Neptune, you'd be in for a brutal end. The average temperature on Neptune is around negative 370 degrees Fahrenheit, which is even colder than Uranus. You'd freeze solid almost instantly. But that's not the worst part. Neptune's winds are the fastest in the solar system, reaching speeds of up to 1,200 miles per hour. That's faster than the speed of sound. So, if you were to die on Neptune, you'd be frozen solid and then blown to pieces by supersonic winds. It's not exactly a peaceful way to go. So, there you have it. A tour of the solar system's most deadly planets. Whether you're burned to a crisp on Mercury, crushed on Jupiter, or frozen solid on Neptune, one thing is clear: space is not your friend. But hey, at least we have Earth. It might not be perfect, but it's the only planet in the solar system where you have a fighting chance. So, the next time you're feeling down about life on Earth, just remember, it could be worse. You could be on Venus. And with that, I'll leave you to ponder the fragility of life in the cosmos. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and maybe stay on Earth.